Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. I am so fired up. I'm going to be talking to Byron Katie, and we're going to be talking about one of her best-selling books, Loving What Is. This is a classic, I think. I just talked to the person who is doing construction in our house, and he's like, "I have that book. Like everyone has this book." I'm, s- you must be happy. But when you think, God, everyone has my book, does that? What does that do for you? And you just think about like, wow, this work is out there.
Well, I can't, this may sound a little strange, but I can't take a lot of responsibility for it. It's like just because I have the book doesn't mean that I'm experiencing what the book directs me to.
Mm,
So, and the book is all about inquiry.
mm,
So when someone says they have the book, what can that mean to me?
right.
Where I'm at is what does it mean to them? And um, and when they're really happy to have, I hear they're really happy to have the book, then it means everything to me because that's just like saying, I understand how to question these judgments in my life that are just causing this unhappiness
Mm-hmm.
and for some of us depression
Mm-hmm.
and that goes into misunderstandings that cause
Mm,
divorce and arguments with our children and a lack of hearing and connection with each other.
mm,
But it doesn't take two people, for example, to connect. Like if you're talking to me, it doesn't take, let's say we're arguing, it doesn't take both of us to have to connect, just one of us.
mm-hmm. That's a good
So if,
point.
if I'm connected, I can hear you, I'm listening, I understand, I'm connected, and we always join in that.
Mm,
You
mm,
know,
mm-hmm.
inside of me, we're joined, and and I love our time together. And rather than leaving a conversation like, I wonder if they're angry at me, or I wonder if anyway, without wondering, you're just connected
Right.
as connected.
Yeah.
But the power of inquiry, it leaves us as, basically in service and how can I help?
Yeah. When you mentioned some of the things that, the places where we live all the time of depression, or not where we live all the time, but some of us live,
Uh-huh.
depression, yelling at our kids. And in your book, you talk about your own experience where you describe yourself in rage, paranoia, despair, and describe yourself as being depressed and on a downward spiral for
Oh,
10 years. I mean, it's,
just, if I were to tell the truth, it was much more than a decade. I was so lost for so long. I mean, it takes, for me, I can see now all the all the confusion in my own head and the people I hurt that
mm,
thankfully I've been able to make it up to. And
mm,
so when I think of them, I'm not back in that agony. I have a whole new experience. I have friends as
mm,
opposed to people that I've hurt in my life. And um, when I think of them, we have it together.
mm.
It's
Oh, you
kind
mean
of
the
like
experience, you think of it as like we shared this
we're
experience
friends.
together.
We're friends.
Hmm.
And inside of me, you know, it's right with me, and they say it is with them for them too. And
Hmm.
they keep inviting me back, so I'm just assuming it's all good.
So you had this experience, and then you describe in the book that you were on the floor. Something said February of 1986. You woke up on the floor with all of a sudden you had no concept of who you were or what you were, and that there was no you.
Yes, and there was no fear in that because you have to believe you're a you before you can be frightened.
Right.
So there was absolutely no fear.
Huh.
So I can write that and say that, but it comes after the fact. It
Hmm.
was later that I could see, oh my gosh, just behind me, there was, I was without identity. There was no identity. But in that moment, I watch your beautiful face, your eyes tracking this. It would be like I just experienced this moment without identity.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about the moment past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
The reason I was tracking is I had a period of time when I would fall asleep, and then all of a sudden I'd go into what all I could do is describe as a void, where is nothing, no one, and I'd say, where am I? And I would look for my hands and they wouldn't be there. I would
yes,
have a thought and like it wasn't a thought. I can't
yes,
explain it. So that's why I was tracking that. I was like, oh,
yeah,
so that's when you woke up at that moment. I don't know how to describe, but all those experiences are so hard to describe. But it sounds
yeah.
like you kind of arrived at that kind of void place where you weren't even
Well,
there
what
anymore.
happened in that moment on the floor was I was just there was something witnessing
Mm-hmm.
and looking back
Right.
and 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 then all of a sudden there were windows and I could see through the window a sky and I could see the floor and the walls and all of a sudden there was a world. But what I
Mm.
saw in that moment was before I would name window, sky, etc., they didn't exist. So it takes an image and a story, an
Ah.
image and identification.
Uh-huh.
Before it can exist, we have to believe it before we can see it.
Yeah.
And then in that, because I had the experience of no identification, I saw that it wasn't real. Boy, this may
Wow.
sound odd to viewers, but just because its mind said window, sky, tree, doesn't make it so. And the prior experience showed me that. So all four questions and turnarounds were born in that moment.
At that very moment,
Yeah,
when you saw and said, wait, well, what is this? Is this really a window? Is it true
I
that it's a
just saw it
window?
wasn't true. Like
Oh.
you looking at your hands, but they weren't there.
Yeah, they weren't. Nothing was there. It was just
Well,
all
you had to
blackness.
believe that there are hands before you can see them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, so you saw how our thoughts and those constructs and beliefs that's a and definition of what is. That's a window. That's the tree. All those
And we do
things.
at the 9 Day School for the Work. We do every morning. We do the morning walk. I call it the morning walk. It's meditation, and we simply just repeat that experience. We go out into the beautiful air and in silence, and we'll just walk, and we might just walk by and see flower,
Mm-hmm.
tree, and then just silence in between. And then what begins to happen in that when we don't put a story onto first generation name, I call it, people have the most amazing experiences
Mm-hmm.
learning about how creative and wonderful the mind is,
Mm-hmm.
how clever the ego is in its attempt to identify
Mm-hmm.
and as something. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, mine can't be something. It's not physical.
Right.
It's not substance or material.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a thing.
When you're saying mind as a higher mind, like is that what you mean?
Well,
Like the
no,
higher.
any mind, any thought, you can't take it out and give it a bath or
Right. Okay, God. So interesting. Okay, so when you think about that moment when a part where did the old part of you go, the egoic part or whatever you want to call it, the Katie that was depressed and lying on the floor, where did she go and
well,
what emerged?
what I began to see is um, she was a construct of mind.
Oh wow, okay. Wow, so you saw the whole thing as like a package story. That just like the
Yes, and
tree, the window, that was Katie.
yeah, she was a construct of mind. So she literally, I mean, the identity literally died. So it left me in who am I?
Wow.
So the woman on the floor discovering what isn't. or what is, what I believe to be, isn't.
Wow. Okay. So what emerged was this kind of clean slate. I want a clean slate, CJ.
Well, that's the beauty of the work. I don't
Yeah.
call it the work for nothing. These identities deserve respect. I mean,
Hmm.
the mind has to work full time. I want, I need, I should. It's a sky, I think. It's, you know, it's that deserves respect. I mean,
Hmm.
that's everything,
Right.
everything.
Right.
So, I mean that literally.
Right.
So as as we do inquiry, I'll say, as you do inquiry, your identity shifts. For example, if you do, if you fill in a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet
Hmm.
and your viewers want to know what that is, it's on thework.com. It's always free. Just print it out or do it online. And and so you fill in the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet with what you're thinking and believing in a certain situation, any identity, any situation, and then you begin to question it. And if you write it, for example, from an angry state of mind that happened maybe yesterday, and you fill it in from that state of mind, then you question the judgments on that page that
Hmm.
you just wrote. And then you run into that person again that you were angry at, and you wonder where the anger went. It is the
Okay.
most marvelous. So, what's happened there is your identity has shifted.
Hmm.
That person has not changed.
Right.
The
My
way
story and my identity.
that who
Yeah.
you believe that person to be has changed.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Okay.
it's not just that person. That worksheet, the concepts on that worksheet apply to everyone you've ever known or will know in your life. They also apply to yourself. So
You mean the
do it.
concepts that I changed shifted to like all liked in similar events of like if I felt
Yes,
like I was abused in that particular way, it applies to like my mother, my father, my the
yes,
bully at the playground. It just kind of
yes,
wholeheartedly shifts everything.
yes.
Wow,
Because
that's cool.
every time you experience the thought, you see it differently, you experience it differently, and there's just nothing you can do about it. You just become a kinder human being every time you do a worksheet.
Wow.
And
Okay.
and when I say do a worksheet, it really is, just identify your judgments on that worksheet, and then once they're identified, it's filled in. Then you question every judgment on the sheet. It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.